Welcome back to the David Kurten Show here on today's News Talk TNT, and it's wonderful to have with me now Trevor Fitzgibbon, who is the on the board of directors of the Intelligencer, which is a wonderful media outlet that gives you truth about what's going on, and also president of Silent Partner. Welcome to the show, Trevor.
Hey, thank you very much for having me.
That's great. Last week was the hearing of Julian Assange, and I know that's something that you've written a lot about, and is the Intelligencer has been talking about a lot. And we focused on that lots last week, but we mustn't lose the attention on what's going on there because they had a hearing over 2 days. They're going to come back with the outcome in a few weeks' time. But the danger is that we move on, the stories come, the news cycle moves on, and we forget about Julian Assange until something happens. And I really hope that the decision they make is good, but the chances of that with the judges we have, it's not certain. What do you think will happen with the hearing? Have you got any thoughts about what happened with the hearing last week and anything that was said there?
Yes, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I think TNT is one of the most vital news outlets in the world today, to bring truth out there and to get the facts and to do what the Intelligencer today, for folks who want to check it out, Intelligencer.today. It's one of the missions of the Intelligencer is to dismantle information operations so that we can get to the truth and get the truth out to the public in regards to what actually is happening, as opposed to what governments and corporations want to tell us is happening. I think that the case, I represented Chelsea Manning for years. I represented Julian Assange for years in the United States as his USPR representative, and now I'm representing some of his American attorneys here in the U.S. as they are suing the CIA for violating their Fourth Amendment rights in the Southern District of New York. And it's an important case that could have incredible bearing in regards to the extradition of Julian Assange. First, let me just speak about the extradition and where that is. I think that, first of all, he has incredible attorneys led by a wonderful woman named Jennifer Robinson, who's in London. But as I have been following this and speaking to folks in London, the situation is that the defense really, Julian's attorneys really leveled some defense and some positions that took the judges appear to be taking quite seriously, which is the U.S. government and the U.S. attorneys could not guarantee that he would not be charged with the death penalty, number one, and number two, on the freedom of speech issues, press freedom issues, when the UK judges asked the American attorneys whether or not in the UK whether or not somebody published classified information, national security information, whether or not they would be protected or whether or not they would be charged, the US couldn't answer that, couldn't say yes or no, and I think that gave the UK court some pause. And so initially, what we thought was going to kind of be just sealed, shut, done, he's extradited. I think they actually now are really considering the huge ramifications of such a ruling. Mm-hmm. Simultaneous to this in the United States, Margaret Ratner-Kunstler, Deb Herbeck, two incredible attorneys, and Margaret has been one of Julian's U.S. attorneys for quite some time. They have sued the CIA and initially also Mike Pompeo because, as we have learned through the media and media reports and through a Spanish court, as it turns out, under the Trump administration, the United States and the CIA was not only surveilling everybody who went inside the Ecuadorian embassy to meet with Julian, including his American attorneys discussing his case, but on top of it, there was what we believe is an illegal search and seizure. they were taking the cell phones and the computers of Julian's American attorneys and journalists and anybody who went in there, and they were copying all of the information on these electronic devices and sending it straight back to the CIA in Washington, D.C. And that's a violation of the Fourth Amendment. And, the CIA initially filed a motion to dismiss. And in almost every other circumstance, the judge would go along with the CIA. In this case, the judge did not. And he is allowing for the lawsuit to move forward. Now, we will know in April whether or not the CIA decides to invoke the state secrets privilege. And in order to do that, they need sign off from Merrick Garland, the U.S. Attorney General. They also need sign off from William Burns, who is the director of the CIA. And even if they do invoke that, we don't know if the judge will permit it. So we'll know in April where this goes. If it turns out that our case moves forward and that the CIA is found violating the Fourth Amendment rights of the American attorneys, it's gonna, I think, really make for this unprecedented showdown on press freedoms and journalism globally, because the idea that the United States, who has admitted to plotting to assassinate and kill Julian Assange, to surveilling his attorneys, the idea that they could prosecute Julian Assange is unheard of, and it's quite shocking. And who knows if the Biden administration wants to deal with this in an election year. So that's where we're at with it, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, that is a really good summary and very detailed summary of what's going on in the case. And it gives me hope that actually the judges didn't just immediately dismiss Julian Assange's attorneys and his case for being able to continue to appeal. So hopefully he will not be extradited. He will have leave to appeal, and ultimately that he should be set free, because if he is deemed not to be fit to send back to the United States, where they can't guarantee that he won't receive the death penalty, well, then what else can they do with him? They need to set him free. But I want to ask you another question. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah,
I was just going to say, I mean, the bottom line is, if the United States can prosecute a foreign publisher under an American law for publishing factual documents, then no journalist is safe. Not in the United States, not internationally. No one is safe.
That gives the United States jurisdiction over the whole world, essentially, which is a complete departure from what we're used to. It's
ludicrous. And it's fascinating when you look at the kind of the neocons that are the makeup of the Biden administration, State Department, and foreign policy, such as Newland and others. I mean, there is this incredible fear on part of the United States, it would seem, that we are in a multipolar world. They don't want that. They want a unipolar world. They want the United States to be the most dominant country in the world and to control everything. So the idea that other countries are challenging that and we're in a multipolar world, we're seeing that play out legally as well with this case. The U.S. wants to pretend to control, from legal to human rights to democracy, everything. And it's just not that way.
This brings to mind something I've heard of, which is the plan for a new American century. Now, I've heard of this document. I don't know too much about it, but apparently in the 1990s or so, and where the people were fearing power going out from the United States to other countries and this multipolar world was going to develop, that some people got together, neocons, and they developed this plan. And that the idea of this was things that they need to do in order to keep American hegemony all the way through the 21st century. I mean, is this true? Am I right in this, or is that sort of not true?
So it's so interesting. I mean, you're totally right. And for 8 years, many of us fought against the Bush administration in the run up to the war in Iraq and throughout the Iraq War. And this whole notion of preemptive strikes and taking people out before we get attacked, and The Democrats, for those 8 years, really used that and fought against that, and used that as one of the defining factors that supposedly differentiated, John Kerry, who was running against George Bush. Obama, Obama said he wasn't going to do this, and et cetera. And with the Biden administration and with the Obama administration too, what we've seen is the exact opposite. For example, with the Obama administration, many people don't realize, but there were more drone strikes, more targeted killings, targeted assassinations, many with questionable legal authority under the Obama administration than there ever was under the Bush administration. We look today with Ukraine and the United States literally baiting Russia into a war, and the continued just blowing off the Russia never to expand NATO. I think we're dealing with an administration and the State Department, some people in there that literally feel like they can get and do whatever they want whenever they want to, and that precedent doesn't matter. International law doesn't matter. International law only means something if it helps the United States. But when it goes against what their wishes are, they don't need it. And we'll see how this plays out. I want to hope and I want to believe that Biden wants to do the right thing. And maybe maybe he'll be free to do so. But I increasingly just really, I'm not too convinced of that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me, what we call a bait and switch. Obama obviously said he wasn't going to go to war. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize before I think he'd ever had a few months in office, and then he goes and starts more wars than you could ever imagine.
Right, and then on top of it, so much was made over the myth that Russia was responsible for the DNC leak and the emails, between Hillary and the DNC that WikiLeaks published, which I do not believe that Russia was responsible for that. I think that was an internal leak. But, all hell was raised in the United States when you watch Rachel Maddow and television, Russian hacking. Many people don't understand that, for instance, with Ukraine, one of the reasons we are where we are is because the United States went in and helped to orchestrate the coup in 2014 that took out the democratically elected president of Ukraine, who was corrupt, but the person was democratically elected. So, we like to complain a lot about things that we claim are happening to us, yet it's just projecting, because we're actually doing these things literally to other countries.
I think, most people watching this channel will realize that this is actually the truth of things. Contrary to what most of the governments in NATO are saying and the mainstream media are saying, that Putin woke up one morning in 2022 and decided to invade Ukraine, and he's the devil. I mean, that actually was started by the West in 2014. And also, you could also argue that the West agreed verbally not to expand NATO to the east, but they've done that 5 times, and now they're trying to get Ukraine into NATO, which is against Putin's. That's his red line. He's not going to let that happen. Look, we just got 3 minutes left. Sorry, sorry, we've only got 3 minutes left. But go on and say what you want to say about the situation.
It'd be like in the United States if China or Russia wanted to have military agreements with Mexico or Canada and put nukes on the border. Like the idea that we would allow that is absurd.
Absolutely. There's a NATO and EU conference today. All the leaders are gathering, and they're talking about putting troops on the ground in Ukraine. But apparently the Slovak Prime Minister, so Robert Fico, has said the war is not going well for the West, and Russia is softening up the front line everywhere, and it's looking like it's going to break through. Ukraine's run out of ammo. Ukraine's run out of manpower. How do you see it developing?
Well, and this is where the information operations, they only last so long. They can only long as until reality catches up with it. And then the public and the world can see the truth. And right now, the United States, the West has been told repeatedly that Russia is getting destroyed. Ukraine is winning. We're about, Putin is on his last legs. Putin's about to die of cancer or have a stroke or whatever. Nobody likes him in Russia. And it's just completely the opposite. And now reality on the ground in Ukraine has caught up to the information operation. Yeah. If you go to the intelligencer.today, you can learn a lot more about this stuff. We have an all-star cast of editors and a board like George Eliasson, who's one of the top war correspondents in the world, and he's based in the Donbass and has lived with what's been happening in Ukraine on a daily basis.
Yeah, fantastic. So I think everyone should look at your website, intelligencer.today, to get some more information. You do lots of written articles. You have videos on there as well about everything that's going on. I mean, just finally, one thing we haven't really touched about, we got a couple of minutes, and the situation in Israel and Gaza. What are your thoughts about that, just quickly?
I think that I think it's been going on for a long, long time. But anybody who denies that this is a genocide is denying reality. And
yeah,
so
I would agree with you as well. I mean, I think that we have to call this out. And what happened on the 7th of October was dreadful, but what's happened since then is even worse. And all I'm calling for
of October.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's all they want is just for people to not be killed. And I certainly don't think the West should be financing this and escalating the wars. Thank you so much for joining me, Trevor, on the show. That's all we got time for today. I hope you'll come back.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. This is today's News Talk, TNT.